Hi, Cornerstone. Well, I recently heard a statement that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. And the statement is simply this: I'm too tired to live well. I'm too tired to pursue the true and the good and the beautiful. I'm too tired to pursue the things that matter. I'm too tired to pursue Jesus. I'm too tired to pursue a bold faith. That's what we've been talking about. I'm too tired when I get to the end of the day to actually think about what it is for me to forgive, what it is for me to be kind to my neighbor, to actually be a person who reconciles. I'm too tired to live well. And I think this season of Lent that we're in, that began last week with Ash Wednesday, is a great season for us to consider this kind of statement, because maybe you've said this statement, or maybe you've thought a version of this statement, or maybe you've said it out loud to somebody, or you've said it out loud to yourself. Some version of, I'm too tired to live well. Here's the invitation that Jesus gives to us. It comes from Luke 9, verses 23 through 25. Listen. He says, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? Jesus' invitation is for us to take up our cross. We can't just simply say, I'm too tired to live well. Being a follower of Jesus doesn't allow us to stop there. We need to confess that and admit that, but we can't stop there. And I recently came across something in my own Lenten devotional. Listen to this, what the writer says. On the cross, leadership dies. On the cross, success dies. On the cross, skills die and excellence dies. All of my strengths nailed to the cross. All of my weaknesses nailed to the cross. All of my yearnings for bigger and better, for anything other than Christ himself, nailed to that same cross. I think that says it well. That's the pursuit. We're to come to Jesus. We're to take up our cross. We're to follow him. And when we lose all of those other things, that's when we actually find what we're looking for. We're longing and yearning to find that life that Jesus is so willing to give. And so how do we move through a statement like, I'm too tired to live well? What do we do? Well, here's what I have been thinking about over the last several days as I've been spending time in the Gospel of Luke. I came across something where Jesus says those words, take up your cross, follow me. But it's the passages that occur before he says that have been just sticking with me. Because before Jesus says those profound words, before he makes that invitation and calls us to take up our cross, to deny ourselves, to follow him, here's what Luke tells us. He records the stories. And one of the first stories in Luke 8 that happens is Jesus is the one that calms the storm. His disciples are amazed, they're in worship, and it shows Jesus' ultimate power. And then the next story after that, Jesus heals a man who has a demon within him. And you see that Jesus is overflowing with goodness, that it drives the evil away. You see his ultimate power. You see him overflowing with goodness. And then you see the next story. And the next story is this. Jesus heals a woman who's been bleeding for 12 years with a chronic illness. He heals her, and then he raises a dead girl to life. A little girl, he raises her to life. And you see Jesus' healing compassion. And then it gets to this culmination of a story where Jesus feeds the 5,000. There were more than 5,000, but 5,000 men. And in that passage, you see that Jesus is enough. That's the point of the passage. And so in all of those stories, they're leading us to a place. Jesus is the one with ultimate power. Jesus is the one overflowing with goodness. Jesus is the one with a healing compassion. Jesus is the one who is enough. And then Luke 9, this is the story that unfolds. Jesus asks his disciples this question: who do the crowds say that I am? I think that's a great question. We always have to come back to that question. And then this is what happens. And they answered him, John the Baptist, but others say Elijah, and others that one of the prophets of old has risen. And then he said to them, but who do you say that I am? And Peter says this, the Christ of God. And it's at this point that Jesus begins to reveal who he really is, his true mission. And this is what happens. This is Luke 9, verse 22. The Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed, and on the third day be raised. Jesus is showing that he is the one who is enough. Jesus, in the stories, we're seeing he's the ultimate power. He's the one overflowing with goodness. He's the one with a healing compassion. He is the one who is enough, and he's got to go to a cross. But on that cross, he'll deal with all the broken things in our lives, all of the sinfulness, all of the selfishness, all of our tiredness. He'll deal with that on the cross. And then what does he say? The Son of Man will rise again. That on the other side of the cross is resurrection. And so we then come to this statement after Jesus declares this about himself, that he's going to have to die and then rise again. Then he says this, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. And so this changes everything. It changes that statement from the very beginning that I mentioned, that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. We can come in the presence of Jesus and admit and say, I'm too tired to live well. But we don't stop with that statement. We say, I'm too tired to live well, but I'll take up my cross because Jesus, you are enough. I'm too tired. We can admit our weariness. We've got to admit our weariness. I'm too tired to live well. In other words, I don't have what it takes, but I'll take up my cross because Jesus, you are enough. I'm too tired to live well, but I'll take up my cross because Jesus, you are enough. And here is what I know, is that resurrection is always on the other side of the cross. When we take up our cross, we will, on the other side of that, encounter resurrection. We will encounter the newness of life. We'll encounter renewal of our hearts, of our soul, and we can live with a bold faith. And so, friends, as we go into this week, the second week of Lent, let us make the statement and confess boldly that I'm too tired to live well, but I'll take up my cross because Jesus, you are enough.